And welcome once again to another edition of the Decline of Wrestling Civilization here on LuchaCentral.com. Once again, joining me now, the mismatched Canadian hockey team fan. We have the Canucks hat and show the shirt.
Okay. Yes, here's the Flame shirt.
Yeah, Calgary Flames. So two
there
Canadian teams.
You know, I knew as you were doing the introductions, you were going to mention this, but I thought, maybe he will spare me the humiliation here. Nope. Now I am humiliated. Now I'm going to have the Flame fans after me, the Canucks fans after me, the Oilers fans will be after me because I left them out. Is it like Western Canada is coming for my ass now?
That makes three people. Good. You're fine. You're safe. They can't cross the border right now. You got time to plan. The coach is going to be one of them. He's a Leafs fan in Alberta, but he's still coming after me. From Nova Scotia, though, so I guess the closest team to him would have been the Quebec Nordiques at the time that he was growing up, and then it would have been the Canadians, and somehow he's pulling for the Leafs. You shame me, coach. Long live the Nordiques. Long live the Nordiques. On that note, let's switch to wrestling, because I don't want to talk about terrible hockey stuff. Just bad childhood memories. Anyways, it was weird because we were building up some of the stuff for this show, and because I don't follow Dynamite and AEW, I totally forgot that they had a big week coming up. So that's entirely my fault. But we're going to start off talking about Dynamite and AEW. It's not something we get to do very often. A couple of things went on over the last week, plus we got the pay-per-view this weekend. So let's start quickly first, what's going on with Dynamite tonight, because they do have a card set up. I don't know if it's all that special a card in terms of match drawing, but they got that one headline match that people are going to tune in for. So we're going to save that one for last while running down this. All right. Now let's go first with the fact that we've got, it looks like a 10-man tag with Dark Order. It's been changed. Okay, so fill me in. What's going on there? It is now going to be the Hangman and John Silver versus Matt Hardy and Mark Quinn. Okay, now why did they switch that from the 10-man original plan? Because it doesn't even look like Hangman was part of the Dark Order. He was not. So the storyline reason is Matt Hardy wanted to wrestle Hangman early before the show, so they booked the tag match instead. The real reason, I don't know. Okay. It might be a travel issue. It might be a COVID issue. It might have just decided, why are we doing a 10-man? Let's just do a tag. It'll be less convoluted or something. I don't know. That's the match that's happening instead. Maybe Tony Khan didn't want to give away another TH2 match. You have to save those. They are the best tag team in the world, after all, the biggest draw in wrestling. We all know this. So I don't know. That's the best I could give you right now. Do you really want to finish the sentence the way you said it there? Yes, I do. Nobody's taking me seriously here anyway. Just making sure. So yeah, we got to represent my boys there. Well, I am a fan, especially after what I saw of Angelico and Jack Evans. Jack Evans, by the way, we're going to make fun of something about him later on when we cover MLW, because there's kind of a ripoff of the Jack Evans gimmick going on there. But Jordan Oliver. We'll get to that. But Jack Evans, when I first discovered him, was in ROH, and I hated that guy. He was the baby face trying to be cool, and he was just a flashy turd, and I just not for me at all. With the style of wrestling I like, I'm sure that doesn't surprise everyone. Then I saw him in Lucha Underground as a heel. Changed my mind. The guy can work the heel, flashy gimmick, and make it work amazingly. Yeah, he's like Teddy Hart without all the legal issues. Fair, I guess. He's like Teddy Hart, but cool and sane. Well, I don't know about cool, but he's definitely sane as far as we know. And Jack is a pretty cool dude. That's right. You get along with him. I've interacted with him a few times. He's a legitimately cool dude. And then Angelico, I enjoyed for what he brought to the table on Lucha Underground, then seeing him as a heel. In fact, my favorite match of his was he did one versus Orange Cassidy on a Dynamite before I stopped watching AEW. And that was my highlight of the show. He did some great submission work. So
that's his go-to game. A lot of people didn't know that. He didn't do that in Lucha Underground.
No, he just flew off stages all the time.
Yes, which, I mean, hey, he's famous because of that, so it worked out. But yeah, he learned the maestro style of Lucha Libre under Negro Navarro when he trained in Mexico, and he's now finally getting to employ it in AEW. And I mean, yeah, he's always been great too, and everybody loves him now because he does that weird dance or whatever that I'm not even gonna attempt. People love the dance.
Wow, fans of AEW loving everything the wrestlers do. What a shock. Another match going. It's basically a night of tag team matches. And moving on from that one, we have FTR. Are they really teaming up with Tully Blanchard?
They are really teaming up with Tully Blanchard, yes.
And they're taking on, all 3 members of the Jurassic Express. Tell me how this came about.
Well, they've been feuding. Duh. They've been feuding for a few months now. They did a Jungle Boy Dax Harwood match. I think it was about a month ago now. Time really does fly. Yeah, great match.
Yeah, and I remember Tony Khan really pumping it up that week and trying to get people to tune in for that match in particular.
Oh yeah,
Dynamite.
Everybody was really raving about it, and it delivered big. It was a great match. They've had a few other tag matches that have all been good. FTR kidnapped Marco Stunt because it's a Wednesday night wrestling show and somebody's got to get kidnapped on Wednesday night, regardless of what promotion it is.
Even MLW, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. And even before that, Marco and Tully was always getting under Marco's skin. They're playing off the fact that he's the tiny guy. He really shouldn't be there. He's worthless.
He really shouldn't be there because he is worthless. So
that's very mean right there. Don't say that. No,
that's my opinion. I'm okay with it.
I don't like your opinion very much on that one. But anyway, that's been the build up to it. So I mean, look, Tully is, what is he, 66? I think he's 66. I mean, look, if he was Black Terry, this would be no problem. Black Terry is a luchador who's like 69, and he's still great. Mm-hmm. But Tully hasn't wrestled in years. I don't think he's going to do much here. I expect it'll be Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy with Dax and Cash, and they'll do a really good job, and Marco and Tully will do a couple of spots, and it'll be fine.
Very similar to what we saw Adam Pearce do on Raw last Monday. That, I guess that makes sense. And honestly, I have no problem with that. In fact, I wish WWE would ease back on the medical proponent of getting people in the ring. I'm not saying they should just clear anyone, but what Tully is going to do, he couldn't be cleared by a medical officer. There's no way. But he's probably not going to do anything that requires needing to clear. He's not going to do a bump. He's probably going to get pinned or something silly. And
did he have any major injuries?
Not that I recall. And coincidentally enough, just yesterday I was watching SummerSlam 89, and the opening match was the Brainbusters against the Hart Foundation. And I tell you what.
That's a great match.
That's a great match.
It's a great match.
Amazing match. So Tully Blanchard could definitely work in his prime until he got caught for some reason that I can't think of in WWF at the time.
They killed his career. He couldn't even go back to WCW because of that.
Yeah, it was really bizarre.
Really bizarre thing. But I mean, I believe, as far as I know, that was his only problem. I don't think he ever had a major injury. He's just old now.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing. So, like, I don't think there would be an issue. He's not taking a choke slam or anything like that. Now that I've said that, though, he's going up for the choke slam
well, we saw what the Stinger did a couple weeks back, so maybe.
Hey, he took that great. He took that.
Yeah.
That great. I was scared to death when he went up for it. I will admit that. I was scared to death. But
another match that's going on in that show, which is definitely not. It honestly, most of this show sounds like a dark show. Not that it's in a bad way.
Sounds like last week's show.
Yeah, where it's just feeling like this is missing something. But obviously, when we get to the last match, we understand why they can get away with having something missing.
Right.
But 10 is taking on Max Caster in a Face of the Revolution qualifying match.
Yes, this is the same thing as the Phoenix Lance Archer thing. They're qualifying for the ladder match. They want to get a young guy in there, and they really like Caster, and they really like 10. So
one of them is going to end up in a title contention match. And honestly, I can rip into AEW anytime. I can't do it for that because I agree. It's nice to have some new faces in contention. We don't expect either of those guys to win, whichever one would end up in that match. But it's nice to have some different people involved in something like a Money in the Bank ladder match or whatever type, or an Elimination Chamber. I know that was just a pretty recent one. And we complain about how it's all the same people all the time. Yet had they included someone like Ali or someone else that's kind of on the way up, it would have made a much more interesting combination. So it sounds like AEW is doing something smart by including either 10 or Max Caster.
Well, we'll talk more about the ladder match when we get to the pay-per-view and stuff, but it is interesting how they're putting the match together.
Definitely.
We'll talk more about that when we get there, though.
Well, that leaves just one match to talk about then.
No. There's one more. The Women's Eliminator Tournament Final.
Okay. I didn't see that on the match card. Correct me. What's going on there?
Nyla Rose versus Ryo Mizunami is the finals.
So that's not the same Riho that AEW fans know from last year.
No. This is Ryo Mizunami. So Riho is back, but she lost to Thunder Rosa in the tournament, and then Thunder Rosa lost to Nyla Rose on Monday in the U.S. finals. No, it did not.
No, I can imagine.
Meanwhile, Ryo Mizunami defeated, who did she beat? She beat Maki Ito, Aja Kong, and Yuka Sakazaki.
Yuka's out,
yeah, I know she's out. So she's touring in Japan, couldn't make it over here. That's why Mizunami won. A lot of people were like, I can't believe they put her over. Why couldn't they put on any of these other women over? Well, they have other promotions they work for over there. So Mizunami comes over. She's going to wrestle Nyla Rose on Wednesday. And honestly, that might be the best match on the show.
Well, yes, probably quality-wise, because Nyla might not be the most popular, but she does deliver in her role. She's much better at it than Nia Jax is in WWE.
I don't understand the Nyla. Like, if you think of the best matches in the women's division that AEW has had, she's in all of them before this tournament, and some of the best in this tournament she was in too. Great match with Britt Baker last week.
There's a lot. She's become very dependable, despite the fact that she apparently is supposed to be limited in the ring. I've never seen that when I have to.
No.
I think she's very good in that role. She knows how to be the native beast. She really takes that persona and the gimmick really well, and it makes it convincing. Again, comparing it to Nia Jax, who I don't dislike as much as most people, but is not very convincing as a physical threat. You know the potential is there, but she just seems like a slightly annoying bully, whereas Nyla is a beast. And
Nyla's also more charismatic too, as on the microphone and everything. I think it's mostly just because she's wrestled Shida twice now, and people think she's going to win this match, and they don't want to see the match a third time. But I don't think we're getting it a third time. I believe that you're not flying Mizunami over here to lose one match on Dynamite
and then disappear,
and then just disappear, which I don't think she's going to do anyway, but she's going to win this, and they're going to do her and Shida at the pay-per-view. They don't really need like a high-drawing women's match to sell this pay-per-view, as we will talk about. They can just afford to put on the two best wrestlers in the best match possible, and that would be Shida and Ryo Mizunami, I think. So
it's hard to argue because I agree. When it comes to AEW booking, the idea of a third match between Nyla and Shida just doesn't seem to fit into their, I know it's only been 2 years history, but in their historical use of the of any title match. They don't go into rematches very often. There's an exception that we'll see in the main event this weekend, but at the same time, it was spaced out over 2 years.
Right.
So
the only reason I could see them doing it again is if with Riho back, they want to get the belt onto Nyla so Riho can then beat her in that third match. Because remember, they had the 2 great matches.
That's true.
A year ago. But I think it's going to be Mizunami and Shida at the pay-per-view. So
I think the momentum for Shida has been pretty strong. Again, outside looking in, I haven't watched Dynamite since probably October. And at that point, Shida has been very dominant, very clearly the best of the division, and it hasn't been tiresome the way that a lot of WWE fans would claim about Asuka, who we know is very dominant, but the reign has been kind of disappointing for a multitude of reasons.
Yep.
You haven't heard that with Shida. She's still at the top of her game. She's still delivering, and the matches have been, well, delivering. So absolutely, I think I like your assessment. Again, outside looking in, though, so I could be wrong, and obviously so could you.
All right, let's get to the big one.
All right, so the reason I'm assuming some people are going to tune in, I don't know about wrestling fans in general, but we got Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet teaming up to take on Jade Cargill, who, if you don't know who she is, tune in. You'll be in for an interesting surprise. And the Shaquille O'Neal is wrestling. Now, after all the years of him going to be rumored to wrestle The Big Show, which we'll talk about in a second, in WWE, he's now in AEW, which makes sense because he does a lot of broadcasting for the TNT.
For TNT, basketball. Yes. He works inside the NBA for TNT, yeah.
There you go. So a lot of good cross-promotion there. And while I'm sure a lot of AEW fans are not looking forward to this match, it looks like a couple of steps were taken this week in particular about trying to draw in extra viewers than just that core AEW audience. And Shaquille, I could see that's the point. I don't know if it's going to work, but I think that's the point of putting on this match.
I am fascinated by this match because I have no unearthly idea how it's going to work. Like, I have no idea. It's being done for exactly the reasons as you said. It's the same reason Bad Bunny is on Raw every week. They're trying to grow the audience here at AEW. Shaq is one of the most iconic figures of American culture in the past 20 years.
Yeah,
he was like a superstar in the NBA. He was one of the biggest stars ever.
Do you think Shaq made his money in Orlando?
No, I know for a fact he didn't make it in Orlando.
No, everybody knows he made it in college.
There you go.
Did I just fart?
Back to the basketball references. It's so early. Scenario 2. Shaq went to Disney World. All right.
Well, that's close by.
It is close by. The funny thing was Shaq has been around wrestling for a long time, if you think about it. He appeared, I don't know if people remember this. He was on, those WCW pay-per-views when Hogan and Flair wrestled. He presented the WCW title to Hogan.
Yeah, wasn't that Bash at the Beach 94?
Bash at the Beach 1994. So he dates all the way. So he was on Turner in WCW before he even made those appearances in WWE, where he wrestled in WWE. He wrestled in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
That's true.
That one year, where he had the tangle with the Big Show, which led to them attempting to make that match. And of course, it didn't happen. And now, that's going to become the second match after Caristico, Rey Mysterio, to be a match that Vince wanted to do that somebody else now does 10 years later. So he's been around wrestling quite a bit. I think any rational person realizes why they're doing this match. How it works, I'm fascinated by it because we both know that Shaq is going to be extremely limited.
Wasn't he, obviously he was a physical force in basketball. I'm not a basketball fan, but from the outside, again, looking in, all my basketball friends would make fun of how lumbering he was on the court, that he wasn't the fastest and that all he had was the size. He could be a very good defense position. I don't even know if the word is defenseman.
Defensive player.
Defensive player.
Yeah.
I'm very, very white. Unfortunately, I also drink Coke, so that doesn't work.
Oh boy, there you go. Yeah.
But in this case, he wasn't known for being very physical in terms of athleticism. He was physical in terms of being a beast.
In bulk, yes. He was not what I would call graceful, but you know, it's hard to be graceful when you're like 7'2" and 300+ pounds, right?
El Gigante understands.
Yeah, you know, Shaq was a lot better athlete than that man.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot better athlete.
I'm a better athlete than that man.
That's true. That is true. You are. So I think if this was like 20 years ago, he would actually be able to do quite a bit. But he's 49 now. And he did have a lot of injuries in his playing career, especially at the end, which is going to happen when you're a guy that size with that much mass.
I'm assuming it was his knees, right? I feel like I hear a lot.
I don't know if it was his knee, but it was his low legs and such. Okay. I'm pretty sure. So he's going to be limited in what he can do, which I'm pretty sure AEW is aware of because, they have eyes and can see. So I expect he won't do much. Cody will bounce off him. He'll do a couple of clotheslines. Maybe he'll do I wouldn't be surprised if he did like a power bomb or a choke slam. I don't think Cody would be able to take that.
For sure.
So we know Shaq's not going to do much. We know Cody is a really, I would say, great worker.
I would agree.
We know he's going to deliver something. Red Velvet is a really good worker too, from what I've seen of her. Mm-hmm. So really, this all comes down to Jade, which is why this match is happening too, because at the end of the day, Cody is already a made guy. Shaq is going to maybe do one or two more matches tops. This isn't about making him into something. He doesn't need to be made into something anyway. Obviously, this match is important to Red Velvet, but Red Velvet isn't being positioned as a superstar yet either. This is about making Jade.
Okay.
So this is all about what she's going to be able to do. And I have no unearthly idea because on the one hand, this is her first match. Mm-hmm. And generally, unless you're Ronda Rousey or Kurt Angle, that doesn't go well for you. On the other hand, she has been trained by Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall, who in a few months have turned Ty Conti into a budding star after she was very limited for a long time. And she was trained by A.R. Fox for a brief period of time. And Heath Miller as well. Those are quality people that were training her right there.
Definitely.
All quality people. So I'm dubious to say that she's going to be good, but at the same time, with those trainers and the way AEW usually handles stuff, I have the feeling that they know that she's got something that nobody is expecting her to show here.
Let's hope so, because quite honestly, the tough thing about this one is while this in WWE, let's say, if they were to do something like this, it's not that no one would bat an eye, but it's part of the Vince McMahon game plan.
It is,
done a lot of these things. It wouldn't shock anyone. This is the first time AEW's done something like this because AEW's made their name on in-ring quality on a regular basis, letting people work and staying out of the way and not making it as there's sports entertainment. I'm not saying there isn't, but it becomes more of a back door or a back seat priority for AEW. Right. This is right up front. There's no way around it. This is sports entertainment as much as sports entertainment can be. And now we're risking the in-ring action by putting three inexperienced people in the ring.
Well, they were going to do that with the Mike Tyson, Chris Jericho thing as well, but that thing fell through. So now that would have been the first thing, and now this, by default, becomes the first thing. My hope is, see, the thing with WWE, because we've talked about celebrity matches here before, like with the Kevin Green stuff, the Floyd Mayweather, Big Show. He's coming up a lot today, that Big Show. Those matches and how those matches were really good. I think the key with what WWE did with those wasn't that they planned on those matches being very good or even great, or in WCW, because WCW did the Kevin Green matches.
And Dennis Rodman and everything.
In the Rodman matches, they planned them out to get the most out of what the guys could do. And a lot of those guys were limited. Like the Rodman match, for example, was Rodman and Hogan as a team. You can't imagine a more limited team in the ring than that one right there. And yet that match is like a cult favorite. It was pretty good.
Rodman was a lot more impressive in the ring and a lot more athletic than people realized, despite the fact that he apparently didn't take it very seriously until he got to the ring. He knew what he had to do. And I'm thinking Shaq will as well.
Yeah, I think Shaq strikes me as someone who probably hasn't taken it that seriously, but then he'll get in there and he will. My hope with AEW here is they just try to remember what the goal is. And the goal here is to make Jade and Red Velvet to some extent as well. So you just hope that they keep the match simple. They don't try to do too much. This is not going to be a great match here. And it doesn't have to be a great match. If this is like a 2.5-star match, if it's an average match, it's a success.
Agreed.
Right there.
Because it's all about drawing the eyeballs to the show at this point, especially with what's coming up this weekend.
Right. If it's a respectable match, that's all that matters. The problem is, like, I could see it being a respectable match. I could see this easily being the worst main event in the history of Dynamite.
It could fall apart very easily. You're absolutely correct.
And it's live, too. That's, like, the big thing. Like, if this were a taped show, I would feel a lot better about it because they would be able to hide the flaws, but like this is live. It is the biggest match of Jade Cargill. It's the first match of her life. It's also the biggest. It's the biggest of Red Velvet's career.
Right.
This is
There's no doubt they've been practicing, because that's one thing. You mentioned Ronda Rousey as a comparison. She was working with all three other people in, the Performance Center for months, and I'm sure they're doing something similar with these people. So that's why I don't know about Shaq not taking it seriously. I'm pretty sure AEW would say, you have to agree to show up to these 3 training days or else we're not going to do this.
Right.
So I have a feeling it's going to be better than people would expect, but at the same time, physically limiting. He's throw the clothesline, he's going to power bomb, he's going to choke slam, and that's probably going to
that is a good I mean, well, I don't know if it's a good comparison, but if you think about it, like, there were a lot of questions about that. That was Ronda and Kurt versus Stephanie and Triple H. And there were questions about that because Angle was broken down and old. Stephanie is obviously a non-wrestler. Ronda had never wrestled before. So you really only had Triple H who you could depend on. And that match was, I mean, I don't really count it as a celebrity match because Ronda was full-time afterwards.
Right.
But
that started as a celebrity match, so I can get that.
It started as a celebrity match and ended as a regular match. Yeah. But it was a great match. That was
a match of that WrestleMania, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. That was, at the time, everyone was like, "Oh man, this WrestleMania is going to be one of the best ever." And then they did Roman and Brock too, and it's like, "Oh no, it's not."
Well, I didn't mind that, but I still think that tag match was better. So let's hope that Dynamite excels. They deliver something interesting. But it's really about drawing in the numbers. I'm sure a lot of it is going to be about pushing Revolution that's happening this weekend. So let's talk about that. We've got quite the match, quite the card going on. We'll save the main event for last, just like we normally do. So there's a Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. Is that taking place on a buy-in, like a pre-show?
No, it's on the main show. They haven't announced the pre-show. I'm sure there will be a pre-show match. They haven't announced it yet.
Fair enough. So, and is that for a tag team title match down the line?
Yeah, tag team title match down the line. So if I recall, they've announced Bear Country, which is a new team that you would absolutely love. 2 giant men who are really, really good at every facet of the game.
If they're actually good, that'd be great. But I've seen a lot of big giant men that just don't really deliver.
They're very good. Like them and this JD Drake guy that they've just brought in have been JD Drake. If that man can talk, he should be the champion in 2 years. He is unbelievable. I love that guy. So Bear Country's in it. Butcher and the Blade, who we love. They're feuding with Bear Country right now, too. I'm so torn on who to root for in that. Uno and Stu of the Dark Order, Silver and Reynolds of the Dark Order, and I believe Santana and Ortiz, and Top Flight, which is Airwolf and Angel Dorado, or Dante and Darius Martin.
Very good.
Yeah, so they're in it. More teams to be announced.
Very good. And there are some tag team matches on the actual show as well. We'll get to the tag title match in a second, but Miro and Kip Sabian, the Kipper, as you like to call him, will be teaming up to go against Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. So
it's a match.
It's a match. Is Trent still injured?
Yes, he's still injured.
Okay. So that makes sense. And Orange Cassidy, I don't get it at all, but there's no denying that he brings something unique and is a draw. So I totally get why they're doing this. And I hope they do something with Miro going forward here, but we'll see.
Well, I think they're going to win that match, and then they're going to start something with him. I mean, when he's been allowed to be like, I generally am pretty entertained by him, but there's a lot of people who are like, oh, why aren't they pushing him? Of course, the funny thing is, if they had pushed him more, you would have gotten, why are they pushing this WWE guy more than their own?
This is where wrestling promotions of all brands can't win, because you're going to push someone and you're going to get people saying why. You're not going to push someone, you're going to get some people saying why not.
I will say WWE is actually thankfully immune to this, because they brought in a lot of indie guys and stuff, and nobody's like, oh, they're pushing random indie guys so nobody does that with it, and they shouldn't.
They shouldn't do it for any promotion in general. Yeah. You should be pushing who makes the best sense entertainment-wise. So Miro is very entertaining. If anything, it sounds like they haven't been pushing him enough, because we feel like that's someone who they dropped the ball with in WWE. Now he's in AEW, and that's been the promotion that, like with Brody Lee, it's okay, all these and John Moxley, obviously another name where WWE missed the boat with these guys. Let's do it properly here. And they've done it. Conti being another one.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it yet with Miro. And I got to say yet, because the one excellent thing about AEW is they take their time. It might be too much time for certain things, and we could talk about that some other time. But at the same time, they're not killing his push. No one's thinking, I'm sick of Miro already. I don't care what happens.
The biggest problem with him is that they put him with the Kipper, and nobody takes the Kipper seriously. If they had put him with really anybody else, people probably would be fine with this.
I think the tougher thing too is because the AEW fan base is so smart fans. You know that there's not that much of a friendship between Kipper and Miro ahead of time. It's not that they weren't friends. I know they did some streaming stuff together, but you don't have that long history that they're trying to make it pretend to be.
Right.
So unfortunately, it just kind of falls flat in some ways, and then it's the Kipper, so it falls flat in other ways.
If Penelope had left the Kipper and it was her and Miro, it would be better. People would like that pairing. Except Lana, she wouldn't like that pairing, I don't think.
And probably not the Kipper either.
Now, the Kipper probably wouldn't be too happy either. No. They should have put Miro and Janela together, now that I think of it. It would just been so wacky it would have worked.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Some other tag team stuff that's going on. Brian Cage is teaming up with Ricky Starks, so Team Taz taking on Darby Allin and Sting in the street fight. Now, I know this is a marquee match, and I'm skipping over some of the other mid-card matches, but I want to stick with the tag team theme there. What's going to happen here?
I think this is going to be much better. I think at this point, a lot of people think this is going to be a really good match now that we know that Sting can actually do stuff. Like, I've seen him move around in the ring now. I've seen him take bumps. He still moves around good, this guy. I don't know how. It makes you wonder what he would have been able to do if he hadn't taken that buckle bomb wrong. Like, he probably would have had a few good matches left in him in WWE and such. But I think he'll be able to do enough. I mean, the other three guys are great. Darby is great. Ricky Starks is a hoot. I love that guy.
He was amazing in NWA, so I have no doubt.
Oh yeah, he's so charismatic. He's a future superstar there. Mm-hmm. And Cage is great. I think we both thought Cage has been great for a long time.
Definitely.
Super specimen, that guy. So they will make this work. Taz will be there. He'll be screaming stuff and all that.
Will he be on commentary or something?
No, he's going to be in the streets with these guys. That's it. Because remember, this is in the streets, this match.
Well, I know it's a street fight. I didn't realize it was actually taking place in the street.
I believe it's going to be filmed ahead of time.
Gotcha.
It's not going to be like a cinematic, but it's going to be filmed like the Stampede was, the Stadium Stampede, where it's just a match that they take, or the Edge Orton matches. Those were taped ahead of time, if I recall.
Yum. Moving on. So we talked about what they're building up to at the pay-per-view, the Face of the Revolution ladder match. So already confirmed is Cody Rhodes, Scorpio Sky, Penta El Zero Miedo. Did I pronounce that properly?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Lance Archer, and then we're going to see two names, apparently. We're going to have the winner from the 10 and Max Caster
Mystery
match.
Mystery Man, who I think is going to be either Ethan Page or Speedball Mike Bailey.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week, I think. Ethan Page sounds like the smarter choice, again, outside looking in, but I've heard a lot of good things about Speedball as well.
Well, the interesting thing, because most ladder matches have people that do a lot of dives, and this match has no people. I know Lance Archer does a few now, but
and Scorpio can, he's not known as a flyer, but he can fly.
Scorpio and Pentagon can do dives, but it's not their, I mean, Cody can do dives too, but it's nobody's specialty here. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen 10 or Max Caster. They aren't doing flips either. So this strikes me.
It's almost like a WWE ladder match because they haven't been incorporating a lot of people that dive and flip lately either.
I guess so. I mean, it'll depend on who the final guy is and such. Maybe they have some, if it's Bailey is a great high flyer. So maybe it'll be him. I don't think Ethan Page really does a lot of flying last I saw.
He's a great worker, but he's mic work. He's not known for his...
Well, he's got some athleticism. I have seen him work. He's got some athleticism.
Not so much in cinematic Karate Man matches, though.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Fair enough.
I'm sure they will find a way to make this work. I mean, there's been plenty of ladder matches where the guys don't do any high flying, and the ladder matches have just been great. Like I remember there was a Phoenix King Cuerno Santos Escobar Lucha Underground ladder match where they did no dives and they just beat the tar out of each other, and it was great.
I seem to recall that one. So yeah,
Jericho had at least a couple in WWE that were great that involved minimal high flying.
Ladder matches don't, and I think that's again a WWE. I don't know if it's credit to them, but that's something they highlighted because they don't do the flying stuff very often. Yet they do hundreds of ladder matches. So I think they've created that standard where it doesn't have to be high flying. I know people were complaining when people like Kane was entered into a Money in the Bank ladder match. What's he going to do? Well, he's going to be there to do Kane stuff. You don't need everyone to do a flight or a flip or
he's there because he's huge, and when the people fall, it's nice to have a giant target to fall on top of.
Also accurate. So another match, you mentioned Adam Page against Matt Hardy. They're going to be teammates on Dynamite, but they're going to be in a big money match.
They're wrestling against each other on this Dynamite. So it's Hangman and Silver versus Matt Hardy and Mark Quinn.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Shows how much I pay attention to AEW.
They had been teaming, but then, Matt tried to get Hangman to sign with him, and Hangman tricked him. So basically...
You pointed out a couple of weeks ago that there was a segment where it looked like he got Hangman drunk and signed something, and then Hangman switched it. So is that what turned out to happen?
Yes, and what Matt ended up signing was the contract for this match. So basically, the big money match, the winner gets 100% of their earnings for the first quarter of 2021. So it is, in fact, a big money match.
That is a pretty good one. When I go back and watch classic WWF from 1989, I miss when they would talk about the winner's purse. And yes, he might have won by DQ and didn't win the title, but at least he won the winner's purse. And hearing the commentators say stuff like that, I know this isn't exactly the same thing, but it's still incorporating the possibility that there's going to be a financial penalty to losing a match. I miss that. I love that aspect.
And Matt is really good at being, I mean, he always has been, but he's really good at this arrogant heel thing. He was great when he was version 1, and now he was great as the first big money Matt in TNA, and now he's great as this new version of big money Matt too. Although, again, when it comes to the in-ring stuff, there's going to be a challenge for Hangman here, but Hangman is very good, so we'll see if he can get anything out of Matt, who has a little trouble getting around these days.
Well, if they could figure out a way to make Shaq usable on Dynamite, I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make money.
Oh, yeah, well, Matt is far more capable than Shaq, though.
Exactly. Thank you for taking my point.
Yeah, I think we're more capable than Shaq.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So the 3 other matches that are going on are all title matches. So we mentioned the women's eliminator tournament. So she's going to end up, whoever wins that tournament is going to take on Shida at the pay-per-view, and you're predicting it's going to be Rio.
Rio Mizunami, yep.
Very nice.
That's my prediction.
We talked about tag team matches. So the tag team championship, the Young Bucks will defend against the Inner Circle. And it's the team of Chris Jericho and MJF. Now, a couple weeks back, you were predicting that the titles might change hands on Dynamite because of the Inner Circle feuding or tension, whatever it might be. Now that it didn't end up switching to Santana and Ortiz, what do you think is going to happen here?
I think the Bucks are going to retain. Okay. I think that just makes the most sense there. Maybe Sammy Guevara comes back from all his nuclear heat with all these promotions he has, and gets involved and costs Jericho and MJF, because obviously that's going to be the 2 programs going forward. He's going to have a match with MJF and then Jericho. So yeah, and then plus the Young Bucks, they have the Gallows and Anderson thing. I don't want to get into wild internet speculation here, but I can tell you that Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, the Gorillas of Destiny, are mysteriously not booked for this upcoming New Japan show, which just so happens to coincide with this pay-per-view, which means they are off. They live in Florida. I don't know. That could be something that's set up here too.
Could be.
So there's more options with the Bucks winning than there is with Jericho and MJF winning. So I expect them to win. I expect this will be better than a lot of people think, because the Bucks are great. Jericho, well, you don't think so, but a lot of us, other people, we like the Bucks. Jericho,
great in flips. Woo! Shut up.
They're great with the flips. Jericho not so great with the flips recently.
But he's good at the selling, which the Bucks are not at.
The Bucks are, as we talked about before, the Matt Jackson with the back and everything is very.
And then he'll still land, and he's fine. He's not selling a back nearly as good as you say.
All right. I can see this is bothering you here. We'll move on. The point is, Jericho probably, the reason this match is happening, because Jericho, he loved working with them on that cruise years ago. So he probably wanted to work with them again. I'm sure he will give a full effort. MJF is a really underrated in-ring performer. I know he gets all the accolades for the talking, but he can go in the ring. He's been in a lot of really good matches, had a lot of really good performances.
I would say the last great AEW match I saw was his main event against Moxley. I love that match.
Yeah, it was a great match. Great match. Probably the best normal match that Moxley had in his title reign.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think this will be really good, but the Bucks are going to retain.
Fair enough. Yeah. And speaking of Moxley, he's going to be in the main event of this show. And it's huge. The exploding barbed wire death match against champion Kenny Omega. I
have done my research on this one. So what do you know about the exploding barbed wire death match?
Nothing. Explain everything to me. Pretend I'm a 4-year-old.
So back in the late 80s, there was a man named Atsushi Onita. Have you ever heard of him?
I have heard of Onita.
Okay, you have one. He is a very colorful character. He is a man who once was fired from political office for arranging a threesome with government funds. So he is a very memorable man. But in the 80s, long before that scandal, he was a former All Japan junior heavyweight who had to retire because of bad knees, and then he eventually returned. He tried to work shoot style. They wouldn't let him into the UWF in Japan. He got DQ'd in a martial arts promotion. So he created his own promotion called Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling.
And we know where this is going.
Yes. And he built it around martial art matches, but eventually phased them out in favor of deathmatch wrestling. And his big creation, the ultimate blow-off match for the promotion, was the exploding barbed wire death match, which is basically a match where the ropes are gone, they are replaced with barbed wire, and C4 is attached to them. And when you throw the guy into the barbed wire, I will let you all at home let your imagination do the rest. Mm-hmm. That basically became the big draw for FMW, which eventually, without a TV deal for a good portion of the time, was drawing nearly 60,000 people to their big events at points. Onita became the hardcore Hulk Hogan. This match became the staple. He had numerous legendary encounters, the best one with Terry Funk, which if you watch it, you'll think is the reason we have all these cinematic matches now for its conclusion. It's the best match in the history of the genre. And yeah, it was huge in the 90s, and then FMW faded out when Onita retired for a second time, and even after he came back, he was never the same.
Right.
The match faded out, the promotion died. A few other places in Japan tried it. We talked, away from the show about that Terry Funk Cactus Jack match, which happened, I believe, in IWA Japan around the same time. New Japan did a couple with Onita. CZW did one with Zandig, or what, I can't remember his name, but I believe that's it. Ian Rodden's promotion did one. There's been a few others here and there. ECW did one at a house show. They tried to get Onita to do one with the Sandman, but he wouldn't do it. So, barring this match, the only match in history, the only promotion in history to do any kind of variation on the exploding death match is Wrestling Society X, which did it on their final episode. By the way, full disclosure, Wrestling Society X was the promotion of Kevin Kleinrock, who runs Lucha Central, so we're putting over the boss here. That match was an exploding time bomb cage match, which was between Matt Cross, son of Havoc from Lucha Underground, and Teddy Hart, because he's everywhere.
And he's nuts.
Against Team Dragon Gate, which was Genki Horiguchi and Masato Yoshino, who, if you've seen those two wrestle, you would think would never be anywhere near a match like this. That is the only match to take place on a promotion that had a US TV deal, and it never aired on TV because Wrestling Society X was canceled before it aired. So this is technically the first match of its kind on a televised wrestling promotion in America.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, so history aside, obviously these two have faced off twice before. They did have a pretty hardcore match. I don't remember what the exact title of the match was. It was a
Lights Out match.
I knew it was something special. So
it was, for all intents and purposes, a death match, though.
Yeah, basically. And it was pretty exciting. I'm not a big fan of that style of match, but you could tell from the fans that do enjoy that was well received. It was that Lights Out match. Obviously, they had the title match that took place on Dynamite, the Winter is Coming special. And, so now we're getting the third match. So we talked about how the AEW doesn't do too many rematches. In this case, they spaced out really well. It's not 3 weeks in a row like it would have been on Raw. And we end up having a lot of excitement. Obviously, this is the main event for a reason, not just because of that gimmick. This could have been a straight one-fall matchup. It still would have been the main event of this card. Adding in that crazy gimmick, Jon Moxley just being crazy in general, and Omega not known for being crazy, but known for being able to be crazy.
But it was Omega who came up with the idea for this match. It's separate from the kayfabe. He's the one that proposed this. Beats the hell out of me. Why? But
they'll figure out a way to make this work and make it safe. There's no way these guys are going to be in danger the way that we saw Terry Funk and Cactus Jack.
Well, unbelievably, nobody has ever died from any of these matches, so they must actually not be. It's the illusion of the danger, I think, more than there's actual danger involved.
I was telling my fiance about how Asuka had her tooth kicked out by Shayna on last week's Raw, and she was saying, fake and everything else, and I had to explain wrestling isn't so much fake as it is exaggerated, but the things they do actually hurt. They just make it look worse than it actually is. And I have a feeling that's exactly the best way to describe this. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to get burnt, but it's not going to be third-degree awful burns. It's probably just going to be a little contact. We saw Edge take that flaming table spot at WrestleMania 22. he worked out pretty fine for his career. So I'm sure these guys are going to be
I mean, goodness, how many did Foley take? And he still worked.
Well, he was always kind of limited physically, but you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he worked way past when he should have, but he still did work for a long time after those matches.
So AEW has 2 big shows going on. The first, which is more of a sports entertainment show, or highlighted by a sports entertainment match on Wednesday tonight. And then this weekend we have Revolution, which is highlighted by every type of match possible. Pretty much AEW, again, I know I criticize and I make fun and I'm not a fan of the Bucks, but when it comes to variety in one show,
oh yeah,
you're hard pressed to find a better option than AEW.
You are right about that. You're not going to find many shows that give you normal matches and then exploding barbed wire matches.
And then high flying matches and spotting matches like the street fight and the tag title match is going to be spotty in different ways, by the way, as well. They're different types of spots. So it's going to be a pretty entertaining show. I'm sure the AEW fans are going to enjoy it. I might even tune in at some point, but there's a lot of stuff going on over the next couple of weeks. So.
I think that exploding barbed wire death match thing is going to get a lot of people to tune in just because a lot of people don't know that history that I just gave you. Most people have never heard of Onita or FMW, unless you're a really hardcore fan.
I don't think anybody really cares about that stuff.
Well, no, I don't think so.
They want to see the spectacle. That's what they're tuning into for Shaq. That's what they're going to tune into for. If they're tuning in for just that match, that's what they're tuning in.
Yeah, that's precisely the point I was leading to before you interrupted me right there.
My mistake. I thought you were going on a tangent. Had to cut you off.
And I probably was. You know how I am. You know me so well.
Now, we've been talking about AEW for 50 minutes, and there's still one more topic I want to discuss before we moved on to pretty other big news and other promotions going on right now, but a big signing over the last week for AEW that caught everyone by surprise. A new announcer on a new program, the former Big Show, possibly once again the Giant. Paul Wight has been signed by AEW as a broadcaster, a commentator for their new program that's going to be on YouTube. What's the official title again?
Dark Revelation, I believe, is the name of the show.
So 2 things I want to go over there. Do you think he's going to, I know we talk about how he's going to end up in the match with Shaq, and we understand that there's going to be matches down the line. Totally fine. Do you think he's going to make a good announcer from what you recall as his personality on the mic in general from WWE and WCW?
Yeah, I think he can be good in the role. I mean, he's obviously going to have a lot more freedom here than he did in WWE. He, obviously that is heavily scripted. And I know reading some of his quotes over the past few years, he wasn't particularly a fan of that sort of stuff. So I think being able to cut loose, he'll be fine. I mean, he was a good promo in WCW. He was a good promo in WWE too. A lot of people forget that.
I think this sign of how he's going to be a good announcer is more if you look back at the documentary footage, because when it comes to personality, this guy has it. Now, scripted or not, he still showed a lot of personality even when he was scripted to look sad or angry or whatever the case is. He showed more personality in those segments in general. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If he's going to have a lot more freedom, he's probably going to show even more, and I think he's going to turn out to be a very good broadcaster.
He gets a bad rap because they did so many in both WCW and WWE. He turned so many friggin' times. He played so many like there was that time where he cried all the time, which was just bizarre. Like, I get doing it maybe once or twice, but there were times he would cry every single show, like for weeks on end, and it was just weird. And they just shifted him around so many roles that I think people forget that he did a lot of really good work, both on the mic and in the ring. Like, I was looking back the other day, like in like the Summer of Punk era and stuff, he had some great matches with Mark Henry and Sheamus, for example. He had some great matches with Brock back in the day. So, like, he's more than capable of whatever role they want to put him in. I do think commentator is the best role. He is 49 now. I don't think you should have him wrestling every week or anything like that.
No, in fact, that's probably the best way to use him, because you're keeping him on TV and in people's minds. And then if you need him for that spectacle, He's ready. He's part of it. He could be building up the feud by just commenting. Stupid. Commenting about whoever he's going to feud with at the next pay-per-view. He can just start it off by saying something derogatory during a match, and all of a sudden you've got that built up for the next 2-3 months, however long they need.
Right.
So I think I agree with you on that one. Now, concerning AEW fan viewpoint, do you think it's a turnoff for them because he's another former WWE guy, or do you think they're going to be more forgiving because it might be a good, successful reach for casual fans as well?
I don't think it matters one way or the other. I mean, I'm sure there will be a few people who are like, oh, why are they signing this WWE guy? But I think this would only be a factor if he was going to come in and be a major player as a wrestler. He's not. He's going to be a commentator primarily. He will wrestle the odd match here or there. I mean, just look at what they've done with Sting. I mean, Sting is an older guy that they brought in. The pop for the first moment was great, but after that, we all wondered, is he going to be that big of a priority? And really, he's just been in his own thing with Darby and Team Taz. He hasn't taken up that much time on the show, So I think that goes to show that, Big Show, Giant, Paul Wight, whatever his name is going to be, they'll do the same thing. I think they get that people want to see these guys, but they don't want to see them at the tip top of the promotion.
No.
They want to see them in certain roles where they can best be utilized. And I think that'll be the case here. I mean, obviously, if it's not, it could turn into a problem.
Definitely. I agree with you there. So let's move on to WWE quickly. There's a lot of things to talk about, but I'd like to keep it short and sweet because there's a lot of other non-WWE things I'd like to move on to. Big news, obviously, is the new WWE champion, Bobby Lashley. I think it's either the third or fourth African-American black champion in the history of the title. He's been the heel.
It's The Rock, Booker T, Kofi, and Lashley, right?
So fourth. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, no. Mark Henry. There's been 5.
He was never WWE champion. He was world champion.
Well, then technically Booker doesn't count either.
That's why I was saying 3 or 4th. I knew though I was one or the other. Either way, the point is not a lot of history for African-American black champions with that title. And over the last year, he's been a heel. So he hasn't been on that big E type push where you're expecting him to have that big win down the line. He's going to unseat the heel champion. He unseated a heel champion as a heel. But he was basically made a babyface for one night. I don't know if it's going to end up being permanent, and that was a face turn, or if he was just a babyface for that night because The Miz was the ultra heel that they needed for that show. Do you think, obviously, from the outside looking in on your perspective, the big talk is Drew's going to recover the title at WrestleMania in front of a crowd. Do you think they're going to give Bobby Lashley a short reign just to build to that? Or do you think that the amount of goodwill that they've had over just a 24-hour or almost 48-hour period now that it's Wednesday morning, do you think that they've built up enough that they might actually extend that title reign down the line?
That is a tough one. I would lean towards them going with Drew for the reason that Bobby Lashley he's in his, he's 44. He's 44. Well, he does not look it, but he is in his mid 40s, and Drew is the younger guy, and he's clearly the guy they're trying to build up for the title. So I would think it would be Drew. You do raise an interesting point there about the goodwill they've built up, but
which I think it caught me by surprise because I'm obviously the WWE guy of this duo here, and we all knew that Lashley was going to win the title from The Miz, and that it was happening from everything that took place.
We thought it was going to be later. We thought it would be at Fastlane.
We didn't know when it was going to happen, but we knew it was going to happen. And then when it was pulled off, I didn't expect to be so happy. As obviously not marking out, I can't say that, but I was just, wow, this is a really good moment. I'm really happy that Lashley won it. I enjoyed the way that they unseated The Miz. Not a big fan of how Raw was worked, but
the bait and switch. Yeah, people were not happy about that.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, I think that's something that WWE really took a risk with because they've pulled a lot of that over the years. And that is something that I think Tony Khan in particular has highlighted as something he refuses to do in AEW.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I don't agree 100% with his way, but I also don't agree with 100% the Vince McMahon way, because to do it for 3 hours straight was a very awkward show to get through. So yes, I was happy by the end of it, but it made for a drag for 2.5 hours ahead of it. So anyways, that side of it, I think the goodwill, I think the possibility of them highlighting, I know Black History Month is officially over, but they kind of can use that momentum from Black History Month and do something with Bobby Lashley. And as much as I agree Drew is a star, he's younger, he hasn't exactly been lighting up the ratings or the numbers. I know it's kind of hard when there's no audience.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that that's not his fault there. That was the show's fault. And I think you're going to see the same thing here with Lashley. I don't think Bobby Lashley at this point is correct. And look, I'm happy for the guy too. This should have probably happened a decade or so ago. Now, obviously, he left. I forget why he left that initial time.
I'm not sure.
But like that, and he did win the world title in TNA, and he was very good in TNA. But yeah, this should have happened a long, long time ago, I would say.
Well, he was a former ECW world champion.
Oh, yeah. Let's not talk about that thing right there, that debacle. But, I have no qualms with him winning the title. I still think that the way they went about this whole thing was just completely and utterly ridiculous, but that's just me. He's not going to be the guy.
No.
So he's a short-term answer right there. So, and honestly, to me, if you're going to do him and Drew, him beating Drew to me is just counterproductive, because I do think they still want to eventually go with Drew as the guy. So if he's going to hold on to the title, the only thing I can think of is they're not going to do that match, and they've got Brock coming in.
I guess that could work. I didn't think of that, but I do think the possibility of Bobby holding on to the title longer would have to involve separating him and Drew somehow. And that's going to be tough, because Drew just lost the title. It was by cheap means.
Yeah.
Every sign points to Drew's going to be number one contender, especially because he beat Sheamus on Raw that same show.
They blew that off really quickly right there.
If that was a blow-off match, yes, that would have been very quickly.
Yes, I heard it was fantastic.
It was a very good match.
I heard it was a great
hard-hitting
match.
And apparently they called it in the ring, which
I
think that makes such a huge difference.
They're really tight, so I can see that. The problem is though, like, what do you do now? Because they had this great match. Drew did win it definitively. So what are you doing now at Fastlane? Because, like, are people going to really buy that Sheamus can? I suppose that doesn't really matter. And I
think with Fastlane being such a middle-of-the-road pay-per-view, it won't matter. They could book anything in there, and it's going to be fine. I also think because it's going to be the first show that's going to be on Peacock is going to be a factor as well, where they're not going to worry about promoting it in particular. They're just going to let it be, hey, the first show on Peacock, sorry.
Well, yeah, and obviously there might be technical issues and stuff, so they probably won't go. It's a test run. This show is a test run
in a lot of ways.
So the thing is, like, here's the conundrum with Lashley, because if he is going to have a longer reign, he shouldn't be wrestling Drew at WrestleMania, because he shouldn't be beating Drew at WrestleMania. So if it's not going to be Drew, and it's not going to be Brock, because that match does make sense, but we don't know if Brock's coming in, who is he wrestling then?
No idea. There's still talk, though it sounds like it was squashed by the man himself, but that Cena could be coming in. We really don't know. It's all up in the air.
Cena and Lashley.
They have history.
Yeah, they had that one match.
Great American Bash 2007, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think that was his last big match.
It was after that he, I think, asked for his release, but I can't remember.
Yeah, maybe he didn't like losing to Cena or something.
Maybe. So I don't know. I think also a factor that is making it very hard to predict, at least for me, is the fact that it's the 2-night WrestleMania, where they might pull something where you have one match one night and the champion defends again the second night, and that could make everything awkward, where they can have Drew the second night. Who knows? Who knows?
The New Japan strategy, yeah.
Well, yeah, but either way, it's still an interesting concept. We'll see how that works out. I don't want to talk about Charlotte right now, but I do want to talk about one more thing involving WWE, because big news that was unearthed yesterday. There's rumors that as of April 13th, NXT is going to be moving from Wednesday nights to Tuesday nights, and as we discussed this before we signed on here, that is 2 days after WrestleMania Night 2.
Yes, it is.
Riding that momentum, switching from one night to the other on the show on the night where SmackDown used to be before they moved over to Fox, and then obviously kind of ending that Wednesday night war.
Oh, yeah. What will Reddit do now without that to argue over?
Hopefully they'll tune into us. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really care, in all honesty, because I was watching NXT anyways. It wasn't a battle for me. And in all honesty, if I was going to say I can't choose, I would have more of a conundrum between NXT and Impact than NXT and AEW.
Yeah.
That said, it's not. This
is not good for Impact at all.
No.
Right here.
But they also own the network, so if they want to make changes, it's not going to be as difficult for them as it would be for any other.
They can move to Thursday or something.
Yeah, exactly. They have that option. I'm not sure what's on Access on Thursdays,
but
they have.
Let's just be real here. This is good for both of them right here. This is the way it probably should have been from the very beginning here, and we can speculate about why it wasn't, but. And I think
we all know why it wasn't. We can never confirm it, but we have pretty reasonable suspicions.
And now we can thank hockey and the NBC Sports Network ending for changing it, because that's now going to move to USA pretty much.
There you go.
So
yeah.
But I think it should wind up being good for both, because now NXT can move to a different night. They don't have to worry about stifling AEW's viewers or playing defense or whatever people think they were doing.
Put on their show.
They can just put on their show. They can worry about growing their show. And AEW, I don't think AEW's ever done anything but try to grow their show anyway. I think they've been less invested in reacting or whatever.
I'll agree with that. I think they have been trying to grow, but they've not done a great job.
But now this will help.
This will definitely help. And for anyone who was channel surfing, for people who still do that, it makes it a lot easier, because as much as I like Impact, I don't think there's that many people that'll be choosing Impact over NXT if they really were trying to choose.
Well, I mean, in any event, like, Impact is on such a smaller station too, so they can't compete with NXT either way, which is why I would hope they do. In fact, they tape anyway, so just move it to Thursday.
Do whatever they need to do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on the NXT show that's booked for tonight, and I say booked because there's a match that's planned. We don't really know if it's going to take place. There's 2 tag team title matches. First, we'll talk about the women. So obviously, they've been building this up for a couple weeks. I'm pretty excited for this. But after winning the Dusty Cup for the first time in the women's side of things, Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai, they're going to challenge our favorites, Nia Jax. Actually, Nia's not my favorite, but Shayna is. I think a lot of people like Shayna. They just aren't enjoying what she's being forced to do with this Nia team. But either way, pretty interesting dynamic. This is actually 2 title matches that have been booked over a long period of time in WWE. That is heel versus heel, including the Lashley Miz match. That's first off. That's something I don't think they would do if they had fans in attendance. I think that would shit the bed pretty quickly. But having no fans, they can get away with stuff like that.
Well, yeah, if you're doing on a rare occasion, heel versus heel is fine. And
one of my favorite memories of getting into WWE again after I was starting to slow down as a kid in '96. It was an In Your House, I think, the Buried Alive pay-per-view. It was Triple H when he was Hunter Hearst Helmsley against Stone Cold Steve Austin in a heel versus heel match at that time. I love that match. It was just such an interesting dynamic. You can't replicate that today, though.
What a pity those two never wrestled again after that match.
And never heard of either of those guys.
Yeah,
they never went to the undercard. They were on the free-for-all for the Survivor Series that year.
Oh man! Now the Paul Heyman joke from One Night Stand has a new meaning because now Triple H will in fact be working Tuesdays.
That's a very good point. The other match that's booked, is the NXT men's title, tag team title. It's Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. They're supposed to be defending against MSK.
The must-see kids of Nash Carter and Wes Lee.
Well, speaking of Wes Lee, as we saw yesterday evening, it looks like he broke his hand. Now, I don't know if this is a kayfabe thing or if it's a real thing. I stay away from any of these headlines. I only see the headline, I move on. But that does put the match in jeopardy, so we'll see what happens there. So once again...
And nothing else on that show, right?
Well, then once again, AEW has a full show booked, and NXT has 2 matches.
Yeah. They really need to get... I wonder if it'll happen if they do make this move. If they do start to... You don't think so? You're shutting that one down.
Yeah, right away. I think the reason they do this is to counter AEW more often than not. I'm sure they have done it before. They've said, in 3 weeks they'll have this match or whatever the case is.
They're doing it because for next week, aren't they doing EO and Tony Storm?
I can't recall when that's booked, but they did plan that one. Absolutely. I don't know if it's next week or not.
My phone is going off.
As an NXT fan, I get it too, because I understand that WWE thinking that we should have something that people aren't expecting, so it gives that surprise wow factor. There should be a balance, and in my opinion, having 2 title matches, I guess honestly is kind of fair, because you can't really get anything big out of announcing what Leon Ruff might be doing. So I get it. Book your big names and then surprise us with whatever Swerve or Ruff might be doing. But at the same time, if Swerve were booked in a match in advance, that would make Swerve look a lot more impressive. And he's on the rise. He had this fresh heel turn. He's got a really good ego going. Yeah. And I'm excited for whatever he does. I would like to know about it so I could be excited for whatever it might be.
Right. It's going to be interesting with NXT because if they are moving, I don't know if they're really in a holding pattern necessarily, but they are going to be moving nights, and I do think that is going to change things to some degree there. I don't think it just means things will be business as usual, and then boop, they pop up on Tuesday and such. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that transition, if it is, in fact, like we're somewhat talking about, like it's a done deal. We don't know for sure yet. Maybe they will end up staying. Yeah,
it was reported by a podcast I had never heard of before, and I know we're probably talking about it to people that have never heard us before, but Meltzer discussed that he had heard rumblings, but nothing was confirmed, and in this podcast say it is confirmed, but obviously we'll see.
Multiple people have.
So we will see what happens with NXT. Either way, it's still going to be most likely my favorite show of the week. And it does give a chance to more people that if they thought that was my second favorite show, but I wanted to catch my favorite show the same night, it now gives them the option of saying, I can watch both 2 nights in a row.
It's good for both of them, I think, if the move happens. It's good for both of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of Wednesday night shows, quickly, we have mentioned MLW a couple of times. They did one of the underground but a re-airing of what took place in 2002 last week, but they're back with current material. They actually have 2 title matches going on tonight as well. One of our favorites and someone we expect to be a star down the line when his contract is up, Jacob Fatu, is defending against the fake Jack Evans, Jordan Oliver.
Oh my God, they're doing that?
They've been building it up kind of well. In fact, Contra Unit and Injustice. I was forgetting the name. I was thinking.
Yeah, Myron is in that stable.
Absolutely. So they have been feuding with the Contra Unit for different ways. One of the last things I saw, because I haven't caught up with the Filthy Island show yet, but they did a attack where they pretended to be part of the Contra Unit in the black mask, and then they attacked Jacob Fatu at the end of the show. So I don't know if it's going to be a babyface turn for them, because it's kind of hard to picture Contra Unit anything but heels. But again, we're talking about a heel versus heel match at this point.
It's tough to picture Jordan Oliver as a babyface. Now that guy, I remember the first time you and I saw him, and we were just like, "Oh my God!" It's like looking at Jack Evans if there was nothing to work with. And to Jordan's credit, I'm gonna put him over here. He has turned into a much better performer overall. I will give him that.
That is the opinion of the person on the left of the screen. Or the right. Sorry, actually, the right.
He's bulked up too, which is good.
He has bulked up.
He was a twig.
Yeah, he's still not looking like he should be fighting Jacob Fatu, but he is looking bigger.
Oh, come on. Nobody looks like they should be fighting. L.A. Park is the only man who looked like he should have been fighting Jacob Fatu.
Speaking of L.A. Park, the tag team titles are going to be defended. Los Parks are going to take on the Contra unit.
Oh.
I didn't get to check who was part of the Contra unit for this show. We know there's Simon Grimm, or actually Simon Gotch in MLW. We know that there's the Black-Handed Justice, Mods Kruger, and then Jacob Samael. So I'm not sure if there's... Oh, and actually they had Davari join, I think, recently as well. So I'm not sure which of the two, of those four men, who's going to defend.
All I know is Park will put somebody through a table. There will be referee bumps, shenanigans, and Park will win.
And he'll do a dance.
He will do a dance at some point, too. And he will be the best part of that match at the age of 55.
Possibly, quite possibly.
It ain't going to be his son.
Yeah, I know you're not blown away, but I really like the Contra unit, and I think that Simon Grimm or Gotch has moments to be the star, but he hasn't really had a lot of that.
Simon will get Park to do blood sport style. That would be he ain't going to want to do that now that I think Park will kill him.
In MLW, they announced that they're going to have one of their special events on March 31st. They still always do this on the same Wednesday. It's essentially like when, the Winter is Coming special of AEW or Great American Bash in NXT. It doesn't take place as a pay-per-view on the weekend. It's just a special Wednesday night show, and we'll see that March 31st. Okay, a couple more quick things I want to discuss. Kelly Klein. So she was in the news over the last week. We haven't really heard of her, and that was someone that you and I had discussed quite a bit over the last 2 years because I was getting into ROH again, and she was the ROH champion. And I wasn't blown away, but I thought there's some potential here. I could see her weaknesses. She's pretty green, but she has something. And then all of a sudden, she was released, and we haven't heard from her. Well, we heard from her last week. And a big part of it is she's suing ROH. And when we first heard about that, we thought, this is kind of bizarre. I get it. She's upset. She was hurt, and she didn't feel like she was speaking.
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy when she was released,
Yeah, and there was some sexual harassment complaints, and there's a lot of, not small things, I don't want to say it that way, but it was small in nature because we're talking about ROH. It's a smaller promotion. She wasn't that big a factor in the promotion. And so, I understand her lawsuit, but it wasn't huge news overall. And then the lawyer came out, who apparently has been advertising on either ROH or MLW. Because
it's Stephen P. New. It's Cornette's lawyer.
Okay. Well, he has been advertising on one of those shows. I just can't recall which one. It might even be both. And he came out and said it's basically due to the term independent contractor. And that really raised, especially you're the one who brought this up to me, but it raised our eyebrows because that's been a big factor, especially with the former Zelina Vega.
That's been a bigger issue in WWE than
which makes sense because an independent contractor, the role is basically you're going to work for me these days. You're free to do anything else on the other days. And in WWE, that's not the case. You're not seeing Dolph Ziggler on AEW anytime. You're seeing his younger, less talented brother.
Oh, why are you reminding me of little Ziggler?
I had to because I finally caught up with Impact and saw his promo with TK that annoyed out of me. And
he was the worst. Everybody else on that promo was great. And then they got Ryan Nemeth on there.
I will counter that and say that everybody was awful in that because I think those commercials are horrible and they do nothing to help anyone. That being said, sticking to the independent contractor fact, it makes sense with WWE because they're so limited and they can't work with the other promotions, whereas Kelly Klein, as ROH champion, was working other promotions.
Yes.
So I understand that this could end up being something that'll, slippery slope and things will change in the business over time. It just seems like a mistake overall because this is probably not going to be a winning suing case. Sorry, winning case for her.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am generally all in favor of this, but it's hard for me to think she has a case when, like, I looked it up when we were talking about this. She was working multiple other promotions while working Ring of Honor. So she can't go in court and say they weren't allowing me to do other promotions, because she was and such. Unless they were preventing her from doing so over the past year, but I thought she was a free agent the past year.
She was, because she was released from her contract. I think a big part of it was the injury, though, and I'm wondering if that comes back to the independent contractor fact. Is, as an independent contractor, she doesn't have her health care covered by ROH when she's injured on an ROH taping.
That's a good point.
I'm thinking that's the route they're trying to go. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
But it can't work, because she technically was an independent contractor. They did not prevent her from working other promotions.
You're correct. I think their case, again, I'm not a legal specialist at all. I usually don't care about any of this stuff, but I'm guessing her position is that her term shouldn't be as an independent contractor, because even though she was working for other promotions, she should have had her injuries covered by that. And because she wasn't covered by ROH, that something has to change in the legality of that term or in the future.
I mean, look, I am not a lawyer, so for all I know, maybe there is something missing here, and if somebody wants to give us the right information, we'll be happy to broadcast it. It just seems to me that, based on a lot of the other cases that we've seen, this one is rather on the weak side. Now, would I like for it to lead somewhere? Absolutely. A lot of these wrestlers are not independent contractors. They are technically employees and everything but the name, and they should get those benefits. Do I think this case is the strongest one, though? No. The problem with this thing has always been that Vince has the unlimited resources and this is the same case here, too. ROH is owned by a large conglomerate in Sinclair, who is just as even more ruthless
in a
than
lot of
Vince
ways
is in some regards. So, like, the problem is these entities have the unlimited resources to fight this, whereas Kelly Klein, unless Stephen P. New is working for her pro bono, or any WWE wrestler has some lawyer working for them on the cheap, they can't fight this for forever. No. That's the reason Vince has been able to get away with it for so long. And I'm going to guess the same thing happens here. It's going to take someone who can get a lawyer who is willing to work for very little and for a very long time to get this done. And I don't think we've seen that person arrive yet. But it's going to happen someday.
Our friend Coach, he suggested something. I don't know if he's ever mentioned it to you, but more, instead of a union, more of a players association, something like the NHL. I don't know if they still use that.
Yeah, he said that to me before too.
And I like that concept, because there should be some protection, especially in the WWE, because they are not independent contractors by that term. But at the same time, a union wouldn't work for a variety of reasons as well, and people would not get the opportunities because of that. So there's pros and cons to either option, and it feels like the common ground would be a little bit of both, which is what this Players Association sounded like. So hopefully some good things come out of this. It doesn't sound promising, as we've discussed, but there's still some hope for the wrestlers to have a better future.
It is, she was the top women's star of Woman of Honor and such, which obviously I know a lot of people like to complain about the AEW women's division. The Ring of Honor one was a million times worse. Million times worse. And yet she lost her job because of that injury, and there was that whole public, outcry over it, and she and Joey Mercury revealed a ton. And unfortunately for her, she had that affair with Mercury, as I recall. And Mercury was nuts at the time too.
Yeah, he was having some other issues.
Yeah, he was having some issues. So a lot of their credibility, And I think in a lot of the cases they were, or actually really not even a lot, in pretty much all of them, they were being truthful. But some of his behavior, which again, he's had a lot of problems over the years, and people need to understand that stuff it's a disease. It's not something you could just weigh in all of that. So he wasn't able to entirely control himself. But
you're talking about like drugs and stuff?
Yeah, because he talked about it on that Punk documentary and such about all the problems he had.
I do recall that. I just didn't realize that was the problem at the time.
I believe I could be wrong, and if I am, I apologize for that. But all of that, because of his underlying issues, their credibility unfortunately took a hit there. When I think in reality, if you look at that thing closely, they were in the right.
Yeah, they might have had some troubles with either affairs or drug use, but it doesn't mean that the actions taken against them were bad or fair, I should say. It was going the other way around.
Oh, yeah, I don't think the action, her getting fired for that injury, was fair at all.
No. But again, we're hearing one side of the story. There might be something else to it. We don't know. I'm not saying anything, but I feel bad for Kelly Klein because I did think she had a good future, even if it was in Women of Honor for a short period of time.
Yeah, she didn't get signed that is weird, right? She did. I understand AEW because she was married to BJ Whitmer, and that was a messy thing there. So I can understand them not wanting to open that can of worms. But like WWE wasn't interested, the NWA wasn't interested, Impact wasn't interested. Is a little weird.
The women's divisions are just growing. That's why I think when we talk about the people that might be signed from these controversies, Tessa seems to stand out the most because there's the most potential. And wherever she were to go, because of her talent, she would be an immediate force.
MLW will sign anybody. They didn't bring her in.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's weird.
You mentioned NWA. That's one other thing I want to quickly mention. Good news, because obviously the last one was a bit of a downer. Good news is NWA is back. They are starting with a Back for the Attack pay-per-view on March 22nd, and then Power is returning on March 23rd, which is good news. The bad news of that one is it's no longer free on YouTube. It's now going to be part of a subscription service on Fight. I think very similar to what they were doing with the Shockwave stuff.
So yeah, there you go. That's why they took all the stuff off YouTube then.
Yeah. So if it ends up being Power again, I would gladly pay to watch that easily. The problem is Ricky Starks is now in AEW. LA Knight or Eli Drake is now in NXT. James Storm is back in Impact. NWA has lost a lot of their
They have
talent
8 people on their
website. Exactly.
8 people.
So they still have ties with Serena Deeb, who is the NWA champion, and Thunder Rosa, who's basically signed to both in some way. And I'm hoping the way Tony Khan seems to be pretty helpful for Impact, there's probably going to be some help going towards NWA in some way.
Will you feel that way if Omega is beating Almas in a few weeks and adding that to his collection?
No, but that's just a single booking decision. And in the end, if that gives some attention to NWA, even if it's something I don't want to see, if it helps NWA stay alive, which I was enjoying before the pandemic shut it down, then it might work out anyway.
I think it would behoove them to use that relationship they have with AEW to get like you can use Ricky Starks on his off days, and plus NWA, they do bulk tapings.
Yep.
So you're not even nobody in AEW is in danger of missing time. Thunder Rosa and Ricky Starks and Eddie Kingston, if you want to use him again, they can all be used on this thing, and then they could be at AEW for weeks before the next taping. So,
if I recall, you'll know this better. So AEW, they do one show live and then another show taped. So they basically do tapings every 2 weeks. Is that my understanding?
So, well, for the next 2 weeks. So this tonight is live. Next week is live.
Okay.
Because they're doing the pay-per-view, so everybody's just going to stick around.
That makes sense.
And then on the 11th, they tape and they go home the next day, and then they don't come back until the 24th.
Okay. So there's a lot of working around. So unless Billy Corgan, if I pronounce it properly, ends up booking the tapings on the same time AEW is taping, which would be a pretty dumb move if especially now that Texas is an option if they want to involve fans. There's we're not going to get into the politics of that. I'm just saying it's possible for them. Obviously, all these companies are going to Florida right now to involve fans and alleviate some of the restrictions. Texas could be an option, and NWA could be returning. I think that's nothing but good news. And if it has, I will probably pay for the first, I don't know if it's monthly subscription or weekly subscription, whatever they're setting up through Fight. I will gladly pay for that one because of how much I enjoyed Power. But if it doesn't have the same feeling, I don't think my subscription will last very long.
Well, they got to get some talent in there because you can't make it work with just 5 male wrestlers and 3 women's wrestlers.
Yeah, it's going to be very limited. They might be some great wrestlers, but
no, that's you. Yeah, can you even get? You can barely even get 3 matches out of that.
No.
They need to be bringing, and it can't just be. I mean, I know there's talented people from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which is an offshoot of the whole thing. But you need to get some serious. They need to exploit this AEW relationship a little bit. They need to get some people from in there. They need to get some hot names from the independents circuit. I know James Storm is on Impact now, but I'm going to guess that he's not signed full time. You could probably use him. Maybe they can use some people from Impact too.
If the fact that Impact's been agreeing to work with now New Japan since they've had Finn Juice on recently, and then AEW, obviously, it couldn't help. I mean, it couldn't hurt. My mistake on that one.
Maybe they could get New Japan involved.
I think that's more of a long shot, but it's entirely possible.
Hey, look, if they can work with Impact, they can work with NWA, New Japan.
Well, yeah, of course, but it's a bit different. Because Callis was part of New Japan and was part of the commentary team for a few years before he went back to Impact. There's some ties there that
I know, but NWA and New Japan have had ties before too, and you got to remember, Impact is the same promotion that New Japan wanted nothing to do with for years, even after Callis came there. They needed to be schmoozed over for a while, so. I could see it. I wouldn't bank on it, but I could see it. I'm just saying, if NWA has the opportunity, they need all the help they can get right now until they can build.
I didn't mean they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it's a long shot that it would happen.
Well, it's a long shot compared to the other options.
Exactly. One last thing, because we're up to our 90-minute, not time limit, but it's usually how long we like to go. I'm excited. I know it's competition for AEW, but UFC has 3 title fights on their pay-per-view this weekend. If I'm watching anything instead of spending time with my fiance, I'm probably watching UFC.
What day is UFC?
I can't recall.
It's probably, if it's Saturday night, it's not competition.
Oh, I thought AEW does their pay-per-views on Saturdays.
They're moving to Sunday because of the UFC show. Now that I think of it, there you go.
Yeah, it'd be bad timing if they went against it because, again, 3 title fights, and one of them is a champion versus champion. So it's Israel Adesanya.
Oh, okay.
He's taking on the light heavyweight champion, Blankowicz. I'm not very good with the name.
I'm the wrong guy to ask on that one.
And then we have...
Is Cub Swanson on the show?
I can't recall the rest of the card. I got it up here.
I like Cub his opinions are shit, but as a fighter, I think he's great.
We got Adesanya against Blackowicz, Amanda Nunes taking on Megan Anderson. That's a title match. And then Peter Yan against Aljamain Sterling.
Does Megan Anderson have a shot?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. Not a good one, but she has a shot. Megan Anderson's very, very good. It's just very hard to imagine anyone unseating Nunes, but at the same time, we didn't expect Nunes to be able to unseat Cyborg 2 or 3 years ago and then crushed her. So who knows?
Amanda Nunes is the greatest ever. So
very hard. Some other names on the card that'll be interesting for UFC fans is Dominic Cruz, Joseph Benavidez, and then Tim Elliott, who's, if you're a longtime fan, he's just been a really likable guy over the years. Right on. So UFC, we've got AEW, we've got some Wednesday night shows tonight. WWE's on the road to WrestleMania. I'm very excited for Lashley as champion. I'm not sure what it's going to do for the title picture, as we discussed, but there's a lot of excitement, as pretty much always, for the world of wrestling. As disappointing as Raw can be and was in many ways, everything else, there's some positives. And NWA is back. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's a big positive right there, because for a few days it looked like they might be getting sold. There was some rumors about WWE buying them, which would have been the end right there. There were some rumors about AEW buying them, which would have been the end. Neither of those made any sense to me, but they were rumored. So, because the only reason was the tape library, which the WWE has most of already. So,
well, if they would have liked to have power, because it did have not that they could use the music, unfortunately. The music was a big part of that. Anyways,
it would basically be to get Aldis. That would be it. And I don't know if I would buy an
Mickey James is, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I would buy a promotion for one guy.
No.
Unless it was like 98 Steve Austin. Then I would think about it.
On that note, we are going to sign off for this week's edition of The Decline of Wrestling Civilization. Thank you very much, Cult Icon. I don't think I got to say your name earlier on, but yes, Eric Mutter joining me, Joe Martel, for another week of this show. We will be back next Tuesday. We'll talk about what took place on Revolution. I might slip in a UFC match highlight that was interesting to me.
Hopefully nobody will explode.
Yes, hopefully people survive that match, and we might hear confirmation of the rumor we heard about NXT, so we'll be able to talk about that as well.
Right.
So enjoy your wrestling week. Thank you again, Cult, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.